Hey folks, have you ever been out golfing, if you're a golfer, and hit that terrible shot and instantly had the instinct to want to wrap your club around a tree or throw it in a pond or beat somebody with your club, huh? Have you ever had that experience? Well, today I want to talk about a cure. Yep, I've got a cure. Hey folks, this week on the Daily Dose, we're talking about a book. It's called Falling Upward. It's a book by Richard Rohr. It's about the two halves of life. And here's what I think. In our world, we have this way of glorifying youthfulness. We have this way of saying that the first half of life is somehow better than the second half. And we want to ward off that second half of life. We want to look down on that. But here's what I want you to know. That's not biblical. Folks, this week we want to flip that narrative. We've been talking about how in Luke chapter 5, Jesus looks at these wineskins and he says, once you taste the old wine, you never want to go back to the new. We've been talking about how in the first half of life, we spend all our time and energy busy building the container of our lives. But God invites us in the second half to figure out how we fill it. Folks, if you're watching on Facebook, would you do a couple of things for me? Would you go ahead and would you check in here at Calvary? For every check-in, we get $5 from a generous donor to help us feed families in need here in Alexandria. Go ahead, help us get the word out. Share this post, like it, share it on your own page. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell so you get notifications. And if you're watching on cable access, tell a friend. We're talking about the two halves of life, and today we're wrapping up this series. And as we wrap it up, here's what Richard Rohr in this book, Falling Upward, tells us. There's something that happens as we cross over in life from the first half to the second half. And if you're someone who lives in that second half of life, you have no doubt felt this. People no longer talk to you the way they did when you were in the first half of life. Have you noticed this? People, when you begin to cross over into the second half of life, they don't talk to you the way that they used to. Or maybe even you might even say as often as they used to. And I think maybe it has something to do with this strange thing that goes on in our world, this glorifying of the youthful ambition, because in that second half of life, we are secure in who we are, I hope, and we're no longer busy achieving and building and accumulating and climbing. And at first, as we move into that second half of life, I'm guessing that there's this sense that it begins to feel a little bit as loneliness. But I think God creates us in such a way that as we move into that second half of life, as we move into a space where we experience more solitude, that it's a space where God has cleared out room so that we can be more introspective, so that we can be more reflective on that journey of our first half of life, so that we can think a little bit deeper about the world God has placed in our laps, and we can find more peace. We might even say that second half of life and some of the solitude that God blesses us with was meant to bring a whole new level of happiness to our lives. Here's how I'd put it. In the first half of life, we're busy writing our story. We write it and we rewrite it. We make mistakes. We send it in to publishers and they send it back and say that's not good enough. We do it again and again and again. In the first half of life, we're busy writing the story of our life. But in the second half, the story's already been published. And we get to simply sit back and write the commentary on our life. You see, it's in the second half that we get to move towards a sort of happy introversion, I've been told. It's there that we can unpack all that life has given us and at times taken away from us. It's a time where we can connect the dots of our life. And we begin to kind of step away and not worry about the small, petty details in our lives. This summer with COVID, I've been offered the opportunity to do a whole lot more golfing with my boys. And here's what I've learned. I have to teach my boys how to deal with their frustration on the golf course. At first, it was slamming clubs. Other times, it was wanting to throw their clubs. And what I've had to teach them is that the game of golf isn't about individual shots. It's about the whole 18 holes, right? And there's something that comes when we get to the later holes of the game, right? In our lives, as we enter into that second half, we're able to look back at the first half and understand that that drive that went too far to the right or to the left, or that putt that didn't go in the hole, or that chip shot we shanked to the other side, went over the green, begin to realize that those were just one or two shots, and that the game is much, much bigger. You see, our concern about the petty details in that second half of life, God replaces those with this beautiful, broader understanding, this understanding of God's grace. In the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 45, Jesus talks about how God's grace falls both on those who do good and those who do bad. It falls on those who live just and worthy lives and those whose lives are filled with unjust deeds. You see, I think it is as we get to the latter years, that second half of life, that God blesses us with this beautiful, broader understanding of this great and abundant grace of God. Folks, thanks for tuning in this week. Have a great night.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on.